The Lonnie Zamora incident, Socorro's unexplained encounter. A police officer chases a speeding car, then witnesses something that would perplex the U.S. Air Force for decades to come. Late afternoon sunlight bathes the desert landscape of Socorro, New Mexico, on April 24, 1964. The small town sits quiet in the high desert terrain, its streets familiar to every officer of the local police department. Among them, Lonnie Zamora maintains a reputation as a reliable, no-nonsense patrolman who knows every road and gully in the surrounding area. On this particular Friday, he pursues a speeding vehicle south on Old Rodeo Street, his attention focused on the chase unfolding before him. Then everything changes. A tremendous roar cuts through the desert air. Zamora observes a blue and orange flame descending from the sky toward an area he knows well, a location where a dynamite shack stands. His mind immediately calculates the danger. The shack might have exploded. His duty shifts instantly from traffic enforcement to potential disaster response. He abandons the speeding car pursuit and turns his patrol vehicle toward the source of the disturbance, driving over rough terrain toward the gully approximately a mile southwest of town. The patrol car struggles over the rocky landscape. Zamora navigates carefully, his vehicle climbing toward a low ridge. As he crests the hill, the view into the gully below stops him cold. Approximately 150 yards away, a shiny oval object rests on the desert floor. The craft sits balanced on four leg-like supports, metallic and gleaming in the afternoon light. The object measures roughly the size of a sedan, its surface smooth and unmarked, except for one distinctive feature visible on its side. Two figures stand beside the craft. They wear white coveralls that cover their entire bodies. From his distance, Zamora cannot make out facial features, but the figures appear small in stature, perhaps the size of children or diminutive adults. The white-clad figures seem to turn toward his approaching vehicle. They appear to notice him. For a moment, this tableau holds officer and unknown visitors observing one another across the desert gully. Zamora radios his position to the dispatcher, his voice steady despite what unfolds before his eyes. He maneuvers his patrol car closer, descending into the gully, driving to within approximately 50 feet of the object and its occupants. The craft bears a distinctive red insignia on its side, a marking he will later describe and sketch repeatedly for investigators. The symbol resembles an arrowhead pointing upward with a horizontal bar beneath it. The shape means nothing to him, matches no military or civilian aircraft marking he recognizes from his years of desert patrol. As Zamora approaches, the figures vanish from view. Whether they enter the craft or move behind it, he cannot determine. Then the roar returns, accompanied by a blue and orange flame erupting from the object's underside. The sound overwhelms his senses, a deafening blast that sends him retreating. He exits his vehicle and moves backward, his eyes fixed on the craft as its flame intensifies. In his hasty retreat, his foot catches on the uneven ground. He falls, his prescription glasses flying from his face and landing somewhere in the desert brush. Without his glasses, his vision blurs, but the craft's movements remain unmistakable. The object rises vertically, climbing approximately 20 feet into the air. The flame beneath it roars with sustained intensity. The craft hovers briefly, then the flame cuts off. In the sudden silence, the object begins moving horizontally, parallel to the ground. It does not bank or tilt like conventional aircraft. Instead, it maintains its orientation and glides away at low altitude across the desert landscape, moving in a straight line toward the mountain range. Within moments, it disappears from view over the distant peaks, leaving no visible exhaust trail, no contrail, nothing to mark its passage through the clear New Mexico sky. Zamora retrieves his glasses and returns to his vehicle, his hands unsteady. He radios again, his voice betraying the shock of what has just transpired. Sergeant M.S. Chavez of the New Mexico State Police receives the call and responds immediately. Chavez arrives within minutes to find Zamora visibly shaken, pale, standing near his patrol car at the edge of the gully. The veteran officer, known throughout Socorro for his calm professionalism, struggles to compose himself as he recounts what has just occurred. Chavez examines the landing site while the afternoon light still holds. 4 distinct indentations mark the soil where the object's supports pressed into the earth. The impressions form a quadrilateral pattern consistent with landing gear pads. Burn marks scar the brush vegetation in the center of the marked area, the plants singed and smoking in a pattern consistent with exposure to intense heat from above. The disturbed vegetation and soil show clear evidence that something substantial occupied this space mere minutes ago. Chavez documents everything, his police training guiding his preservation of what has suddenly become a scene of extraordinary significance. Word spreads quickly through law enforcement and military channels. By the following day, investigators converge on Socorro from multiple agencies. Among them arrives Dr. J. Allen Hynek, the professional astronomer serving as scientific consultant to Project Blue Book, the United States Air Force's official investigation program for unidentified flying objects. FBI agent Arthur Byans also examines the site. Major Hector Quintanilla, director of Project Blue Book, conducts the formal investigation, interviewing Zamora at length and examining every aspect of the reported encounter. Hynek's involvement proves particularly significant. The Northwestern University astronomer has spent years evaluating UFO reports for the Air Force, his scientific credentials lending authority to Blue Book's conclusions. His approach typically favors conventional explanations, his academic reputation built on rigorous skepticism and evidence-based analysis. Yet the Socorro case presents him with something different. The physical evidence remains fresh, documented within hours by trained observers. The witness possesses impeccable credentials and a local reputation for reliability. The account itself maintains internal consistency and matches the physical traces at the site. Hynek measures the landing impressions, examines the burn patterns, and interviews Zamora extensively. He finds no indication of deception, no inconsistencies in the officer's account, no conventional explanation that satisfies the evidence before him. The astronomer privately acknowledges what he cannot state publicly while serving as Air Force consultant. This case defies easy dismissal. Something genuinely unknown occurred in this desert gully. The investigation extends to the distinctive red insignia Zamora observed and sketched. Project Blue Book investigators circulate the drawing to aircraft manufacturers, military facilities, and aerospace companies throughout the United States. No organization recognizes the symbol. It matches no known marking system, no corporate logo, no military designation. The insignia remains as unexplained as the craft that bore it. Major Quintanilla completes his investigation and files his report. Despite every effort to identify a conventional explanation, Project Blue Book classifies the Zamora case as unidentified. This designation carries weight. Of the more than 12,000 cases investigated by Blue Book during its decades of operation, fewer than 700 receive this classification. The vast majority find conventional explanations or lack sufficient evidence for analysis. The Socorro incident joins the small fraction that resist explanation even under intense scrutiny by military and scientific investigators. The case's impact extends beyond its official classification. Hynek's private correspondence, published after his passing, reveals the depth of his conviction regarding Socorro. He considers it one of the most significant cases in the entire Project Blue Book archive, far more compelling than his public statements for the Air Force acknowledge. The encounter contributes to his growing disillusionment with the Air Force's approach to the UFO question. Within years, he parts ways with Project Blue Book and establishes the Center for UFO Studies, an independent research organization that approaches the phenomenon with scientific rigor outside military control. He cites the Zamora case repeatedly as one of the key incidents that transformed his assessment of the UFO phenomenon from from dismissive skepticism to serious scientific interest. Lonnie Zamora maintains his account without variation for the remainder of his life. He grants interviews sparingly, uncomfortable with attention, but consistent in his description of what transpired that April afternoon. His reputation in Socorro never wavers. Colleagues and community members who know him personally express no doubt about his honesty or reliability. He describes what he observed, nothing more, nothing less, and stands by that testimony across decades. The landing site itself becomes a destination for researchers in subsequent years. The gully remains accessible, its terrain unchanged by development. Investigators return periodically to document the location, verifying that the landscape matches Zamora's descriptions and the original investigation photographs. Some report that soil impressions remain visible for years after the event, depressions in the earth that resist the leveling effects of wind and weather in ways that suggest the weight that created them was extraordinary. The Zamora incident establishes a benchmark for close encounter documentation. It presents investigators with every element a credible case requires: a trained observer with verifiable credentials, physical evidence examined and documented by multiple professionals within hours of the event, official investigation by military and scientific authorities, and consistent testimony maintained across decades. Former Project Blue Book investigators, even those generally skeptical of UFO reports, acknowledge the Socorro case as uniquely compelling within the archive. Dr. Hynek's endorsement carries particular weight. As the Air Force's own scientific consultant, his assessment that the case represents a genuinely unknown phenomenon provides validation that few other incidents receive. His transformation from skeptic to serious researcher, influenced substantially by cases like Socorro, demonstrates the impact of well-documented encounters on even the most rigorous scientific minds. The case influences American UAP research methodology for generations. It demonstrates the importance of rapid response to reported incidents, thorough documentation of physical evidence, and careful interview techniques with witnesses. Researchers studying subsequent cases reference Socorro as the standard for what constitutes compelling physical trace evidence and credible witness testimony. Decades after that April afternoon, the Zamora incident retains its status as Project Blue Book's most credible landing case. The object that rose from the Socorro Desert and disappeared over the mountains was never identified. The figures in white coveralls were never explained. The red insignia was never matched. The case remains, as Major Quintanilla classified it, unidentified. If you found this case compelling, subscribe to Vanishing Roads for more documented paranormal investigations from around the world. This story was created with AI assistance based on documented case files. All events reference real investigations and reported incidents.